Hi everybody, welcome back to Rich Reviews, and you join us in our BMW 320i, which is our courtesy car that's been provided to us by Lotus, while our Lotus is having the 9 issues resolved at Lotus Ryland Bristol. We're actually on our way to Lotus Ryland Bristol at the moment because they provided us with unprecedented access to their workshop to see our Lotus while it's in a dismantled status, having all these issues resolved. So we're going to be able to go there, take some footage in the workshop itself and have a look at how the car is being remediated, how those parts are being repaired and the actual parts that are being fitted to our car. Absolutely incredible. Thank you very much to Lotus Ryland Bristol for providing us this access. So you'll join us next at Lotus Ryland Bristol. Driving a Lamborghini Miura. Today's video is presented in partnership with Hampson Auctions, one of the UK's leading classic, performance and supercar auction houses. Their next sale takes place on the 9th of March at the magnificent Bolesworth Castle in Cheshire. So you join us now in the workshop at Ryland Lotus Bristol, and we're going to walk you through the issues that have been resolved on our car that we can visibly see while the car is in this position. As you can see, the car is completely dismantled now for these parts to be fitted and for the parts to be remediated. And again, thank you very much to Ryland Lotus Bristol. This is unprecedented access to have access to the workshop while they're actually repairing our Lotus Emira. This is incredible access. So first of all, the windscreen being replaced. So this is the new windscreen on the car now, and this has already settled in. The first thing they did was to replace the windscreen so that the windscreen had plenty of time to settle, and of course that was pretty much a whole day job just putting in the new windscreen, and they couldn't do anything else because the people who replaced the windscreen had to have full access to the car, and of course they couldn't move the car around because the windscreens on these cars, as with most cars nowadays, supercars and sports cars, is a part of the structural rigidity of the panel. So it's part of the structural strength of the actual chassis of the car and body of the car. So moving on to the front section, first of all, you can see here the brake reservoir that I was talking to you about before, where I couldn't show you because you have to undo some fasteners to be able to gain access to hinge the top panel up. But of course, our top panel is totally off now to replace the resistor pack. So we've got full access here to show you. This is the actual brake fluid reservoir, and you can see the minimum and maximum levels on there. And of course, it just you unscrew the cap to put any more brake fluid in there. So that's how you would replace the brake fluid. And that's the sensor connectivity for understanding whether or not the brake fluid is low. So that tells the warning lights whether or not the brake fluid is low. It's got a sensor in there to tell you that. Moving on to the resistor pack, this is the new membrane that is going to be fitted, because if you imagine you've got your scuttle there, which has got your drainage for the windscreen. Now, a lot of cars or normal cars have drainage routes where for the water to actually drain through when the water comes, it hits the windscreen and then drains out. In their eminent wisdom, they didn't actually put any drainage channels on the Lotus Emira. Even though they did on the Evora, they didn't for some reason do it on the Lotus Emira. So the water just comes down and drains through the normal process. But unfortunately, underneath here is the fuse box. So this is the main fuse box, and you've got the water channel coming down here. So the water hits this fuse box, and underneath this fuse box you've got all the cabling, and the cabling routes down the side down here to the resistor pack, and in effect the water follows the cabling, follows the channels of the cabling all the way down into the resistor pack, and it goes into the resistor pack through the wiring cabling section, and it rots out the electronics on the resistor pack, and we can show you one that's been rotted out. So this is the brand new resistor pack that's going to go on our Lotus Emira, all nicely sealed up. This is a resistor pack that has failed with this problem, and what happens is the water comes down the cabling channel into these connectors here, and then goes into the actual casing of the resistor pack and onto the electronics. You can see the oxidization on this section, and that's showing where the moisture has been, and it's in effect arced across and shorted out the resistor pack, and of course fails the climate control fan system. So you have either on or off. And of course they replaced a lot of these resistor packs without having a fix for the main root cause problem, which of course was water ingress, and to stop that water from ingressing. And of course they do that by providing this membrane now. So this is the OEM fix, or rather, you know, the post OEM, if you like, fix that Lotus are providing, whereby This is a membrane that's been fitted to cars now, and this membrane prevents water. It covers over the fuse back system, links across onto this vent area here, which is one of the intakes, to the heating system, and it actually prevents and channels the water, prevents the water from ingressing into the resistor pack and into the fuse box, and just routes the water elsewhere, so it can't actually go into that particular area and cause any problems. And the heater system is actually this. So that's actually your heater system here, with your heater matrix, etc. And it's got a stepper motor here to change the relevant controls for the flaps and for the motor, etc. downstream, which obviously the motor is driven by the resistor pack, or through the resistor pack mechanism. So they just provided us that membrane. It's not been fitted yet properly, obviously, but they've provided us that membrane so as we can show you the actual root cause and how it's being resolved. Now, moving to the back, the workshop have kindly put our car up on the ramps now because they've noticed another problem. Now, we've got a couple of the panels off. The panels at the front are off to provide access to the resistor pack, but underneath here they've noticed a leak on our power steering pump. So if you look underneath here, you can see that there's a little drip from the power steering pump, so that needs resolving as well, and they're going to resolve it during this week too, and it's going to be resolved with a whole new power steering pump. So they're putting a new power steering pump in the car as well because there's a little leak coming from it. And if you look at the bottom panel, the bottom drip tray, or the bottom tray that provides the aerodynamics underneath the car, that's where the power steering pump is located, above this panel section. So you can see there where the oil's been leaking from the power steering pump. So that's potentially another little problem there as well. And if we move forwards to the front section of the car, because this is the rear of the car, so if you look underneath here, I'll try and point to it so you can actually see it, but that there is the resistor pack, and it's got a cover on it at the moment, but that's where the resistor pack is held. You'll see the engine cover's been removed, and that is going to be replaced. This is the new engine cover that's been fitted, all nicely cleaned and actually immaculate, etc., and all been resolved. So this is the new engine cover, and that's going to be installed onto our Lotus Emira. And they've already replaced the good old snapped thread bar. There it is, that's the new thread bar. And I think they said it was very easy to install. It was just a case of the adjustment to adjust the valve actuator, which is the start point of the wastegate actuator valve. So all that hassle with regards to Lotus saying you need a whole new supercharger at over 10 grand was replaced in a very small amount of time by an engineer replacing the thread bar. Just, you know, a new thread bar being provided eventually by Lotus. And as you can see here, now we've got the panels off. Now we've got the engine cover panels off. You can see all the engine here and how it's all in effect an aluminium system, aluminium gearbox, transaxle, etc., all built up to be able to provide lightness and made out of aluminium to be as light as possible. And you can see here how a substantial amount of the weight is actually quite high in the Lotus Emira, so it's not very low set. So you have to be aware of that. Yes, it's mid-mounted, so it provides you with great balance for it being a mid-mounted engine, but it's actually quite high up, so that will provide some issues with stability when you're driving, when you're maneuvering the car at speed. So you have to be aware of that the mass isn't set down low. And of course this is just the rear luggage space compartment, etc. Now moving to the inside, our HVAC, or our climate control, which most of you understand it as being, has also been fixed. It's got a new front climate control fascia panel being installed, and that doesn't really show you anything, but if I come through on the other side, all nice and smooth, no more stiffness in these buttons. Hopefully there's enough light in the car for you to see that, but all sweet as a nut, no more problems. A whole new control panel been fitted. So Lotus, when they get their act together, they can provide new parts and resolve all these problems. Are you looking to buy a supercar or sports car? We can help you. RichReviews makes the luxury car buying process simple and stress-free. Whether you're looking to buy your first supercar or add a car to your collection, our services include expert telephone support calls, pre-purchase inspection, and car collection videos. RichReviews takes care of all the details so you can just sit back and enjoy a hassle-free purchase process. But don't just take our word for it. Check out some of the testimonials from our customers below. Contact us today via the comments below or at the following email address. Thank you for your time. While the car's been here, it's also had the firmware updated, and there's been certain recalls that have required the firmware to be, or firmware revisions to be updated, but it's also needed the firmware updated to resolve the S.O.S error problem. Now, it's not resolving the root cause of the problem, because the root cause is either the S.O.S warning system or the emergency control system of the S.O.S cannot see the GSM network because the car's in the garage, whatever, as I've already explained in my previous videos. Or it's because the backup 5-volt battery is a bit depleted, it's a bit below voltage, and it errors and provides the S.O.S warning. Now, the way to resolve it obviously is for the car to see the GSM network, so you drive the car, and to make sure that the battery is kept charged, you have to actually physically drive the car, because the battery tender does not charge that 5-volt backup battery. You can also charge that 5-volt backup battery by just turning the ignition on, but people aren't going to leave their cars just with ignition on. So you physically go out and drive the car, and it charges up that 5-volt battery. Now, one of the other previous recalls that's been performed on this car, and is a major recall for most cars, especially the earlier cars, modern cars will have it resolved. You'll hear loads of noises in the background with cars being moved around, etc., because this is a working workshop, and that's a Lamborghini Performante that's just coming in. We can't show you the car because it's a customer car, but take my word for it, it's a Lamborghini Performante Hurricane that's just come into the workshop. Pretty cool. It's green with obviously the stripe in the sill section, but yeah, it's a Spider too, so I won't go into that. One of the other major issues that's beset these Lotus Emira cars is the windscreen wiper motor. Now, this has got, you can tell by the ID of this particular badge here, that this windscreen wiper motor has been updated. It's already been replaced, so it's replaced in one of the earlier recalls that was performed on this car. The problem with that motor is actually the firmware, but you cannot update the firmware on the wiper motor, so the only solution is to actually replace the motor, and that's why those wiper motors were replaced. So that's it, guys. Unprecedented access to the workshop at Lotus Ryland Bristol. Thank you very much again to Lotus Ryland Bristol. Absolutely awesome to provide us this access to their workshop. Unprecedented access. And to show you our car, our Lotus Emira, dismantled in parts. All these parts will be updated, and the car will come out of the workshop towards the end of the week, and we'll provide you an update when the car is back with us, and we'll walk you through and talk you through the end resolution to all our problems.